There was once a man named Daniel who lived in a small town known for its beautiful apple orchards. Every fall, the hills would turn gold and crimson, and the air was filled with the sweet smell of ripening fruit. Families filled baskets, children climbed ladders, neighbors shared pies. It was the season that everyone looked forward to, a season of sweetness and gathering. But Daniel never picked apples in September like everyone else. Each year, when his neighbors went out with baskets to gather the bright, crisp fruit, Daniel would say, "Not yet. The apples will be even sweeter if I wait just a little bit longer." And so he waited. He told himself that there was no rush. After all, the trees were right there in his backyard. He wanted the perfect moment. The first year, by the time Daniel went out, most of the apples had fallen and begun to rot. The second year, a sudden frost blackened the fruit. The third year, a family of deer found the orchard before he did. Still, every year, Daniel told himself the same thing. Next year, I'll pick them at the right time next year. And then one autumn, an early storm tore through the valley. The wind cracked the branches, and the orchard never recovered. The next spring, the trees bore no blossoms at all. That was the year Daniel stood among the bare branches and realized he had been waiting for the perfect moment, and the moment was gone. My friends, as we gather on this Rosh Hashanah, the birthday of the world, the day when time itself is renewed, I want to ask us, how many orchards in our lives have we left untended, waiting for the perfect moment? We know this story because we live it. Sometimes we're immobilized by fear of failing, fear of rejection, fear that if we take a risk, it will not turn out the way that we hope. So we delay. We tell ourselves, not yet, not today, tomorrow will be safer. Sometimes we're caught up in searching for the next best thing. We think, why commit now? Maybe something better will come along. We scroll endlessly, compare endlessly, wait for the upgrade endlessly. And sometimes, like Daniel, we wait for that perfect moment, the perfect time to have that important conversation, to take that first step, to mend that broken relationship, to begin that long-imagined dream. We picture a future when all of the stars will align, when everything will feel easier, and where fear will magically dissolve. But life rarely gives us that perfect moment. And when we wait too long, like Daniel and his orchard, often the moment passes us by. Ecclesiastes warns us, Shomer Ruach lo yizra. One who watches the wind will never sow, and he who observes the clouds will never reap. If you wait for perfect conditions, you will never plant, never harvest, never act. The Torah knows this truth, and it gives us portraits of 4 human beings, 4 different ways of waiting from which we can learn. Abraham, Moses, Jonah, and Esther. Each of them faces a choice between hesitation and moving forward, Each of them handles it differently and teaches us something about ourselves and our own orchards. Abraham is the model of zrizut, spiritual urgency. When three strangers arrive at his tent, the Torah emphasizes that urgency. Vayar vayaratz likratam. Looking up, he saw three figures standing near him. Perceiving this, he ran from the entrance of the tent to greet them. And a few verses later, Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah, and he said, Mahari, quickly, 3 seahs of choice flour. The Hebrew repeats verbs of speed, vayaratz, vayamaher, mahari, words meaning running and quickly. Rabbi Alexander Shuval Weiner in the Musar Torah commentary shares the rabbinic insight into this story. He writes, Abraham is shown as rushing to fulfill the mitzvah of hachnasat orchim, welcoming guests. Immediately prior to the arrival of these strangers, Abraham is found sitting at the heat of the day, convalescing from his brit milah, his circumcision. That is, he's in a weakened and diminished emotional and physical state. When he looks up, he sees the strangers. He harnesses all of his energy and rushes out to meet them, caring only for their comfort. Now add to that the stories about the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, where it says Abraham arose early in the morning, and the story of running back to rescue his brother Lot from captivity, just to name a few. And we see the paradigmatic example of someone who rushes to perform what he believes is a mitzvah. Abraham demonstrates that when an opportunity arises, especially for kindness, we cannot wait for perfect conditions. To delay is to miss the mitzvah. His orchard was never empty because he ran to gather the fruit the moment it ripened. Moses begins very differently, full of hesitation. At the burning bush, he says, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and free the Israelites?" And later he says, "O Lord, I have never been a man of words. I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." This is not the portrait of a man who we come to know as the paramount leader in Jewish history. At the Sea of Reeds, however, he transforms. It's true that the rabbis describe how Nachshon ben Aminadav was the first one to go up to his nose before the water split. But in the Torah, it was Moses, raising his staff, who embodied the moment of action. It is here, and after an initial bit of hesitation and a bit of a prep talk by God, that he portrayed beginning to act with the zrizut, the urgency of the leader that he was now going to be. Later on at Mount Sinai, it says he rose early in the morning to ascend the mountain, ready to receive Torah. And when the children of Israel falter at the golden calf, the immediacy of his action can be found both in the destruction of the tablets, as well as his intercession on our behalf when God's anger threatened to destroy us. Moses' story reminds that hesitation is human. Even holy leaders doubt themselves. But growth means getting past paralysis and moving from delay to courage, from who am I to move forward. And that is the leader that he grows to be. Now, Jonah is a completely different matter. Jonah's story, which we will read Yom Kippur afternoon, is the counterexample to everything that we've been seeing so far. God commands him, "Arise, go to Nineveh, to that great city, and proclaim against it." But Jonah, it says, rose to flee to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. His waiting takes the form of avoidance. He literally went below deck and lay down and fell asleep. The Midrash suggests that Jonah thought that he could sleep off God's command, a metaphor for his paralysis and fear. While the sailors are frantically praying and throwing cargo overboard during the storm, Jonah withdraws. His descent, Vayered, is both physical and spiritual, a refusal to engage. Only in the belly of the fish did Jonah realize the futility of avoidance. Ultimately, after all the energy he puts into flight, he starts right back at the beginning. Jonah teaches us that running away is not neutral. It is its own form of waiting, one that leads to darkness until we turn back. His orchard rots not from storm or frost, but from neglect. His avoidance teaches us what is at stake when we say not yet or not today for the things that truly need to be accomplished. And that brings us to Esther. Esther is the opposite of Jonah. She acts, but she's also not quite like Abraham. She also waits. However, she waits with intention. When Mordecai urges her to approach the king, she replies, "All the king's servants know if any man or woman enters the king's presence without being called, there is one law for them, that they be put to death, and I have not been called." She knows that if she just acts, it could end in disaster. But then a few verses later, she's thought it through and says, "Go assemble the Jews and fast on my behalf. I and my maidens will fast likewise, and thus will I go to the king." Esther does not delay forever. She prepares spiritually, communally, emotionally. Esther's 3-day wait was not hesitation, but strategy. She knew that courage without preparation can be reckless, but preparation without courage is that paralysis. Esther shows us that waiting can be holy when it leads to readiness. Together, these 4 portraits remind us that there is a time to act with Abraham's speed and a time to overcome hesitation like Moses, a danger in Jonah's avoidance, and a holiness in Esther's patient preparation. The spiritual challenge of our lives is trying to figure out which time we're in. Now, you might think that zrizut, urgency, is the ideal for all of Jewish life. Yet our tradition is also filled with examples of savlanut, patience. And one of the best examples of that is God. Now, truly, there are situations where God seems to act with an immediacy that's almost overwhelming. And yet there are other times when God waits. God waits centuries before redeeming the Israelites from Egypt. God waits millennia for humanity to turn its heart. God waits perhaps today for us. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel teaches that waiting is not weakness, nor is it wasted time. For Heschel, waiting is the very essence of faith. Our lives are not simply a chain of events, but a posture of anticipation, a leaning forward into that possibility. In Judaism, we're always waiting for the sun to set each Friday so Shabbat can sanctify our homes, for redemption in a broken world, for God's presence to touch our lives in moments of joy or in hours of despair. Heschel writes, "There is a mysterious waiting in the world. It is as if all things, all events, all times, all people are waiting." Seemingly, like Daniel in our story, to wait is to believe that something better can still come. The fruit will be even sweeter. For Heschel, waiting is the heartbeat of hope. And Heschel even takes it a step further. He shows that the waiting goes both ways. Not only do we wait for God, but as I said, God waits for us. God waits for our return, our teshuvah. God waits for our compassion to awaken, for our courage to act. Heschel titled one of his most famous books, God in Search of Man, because he believed this truth. God is not distant, unmoved, or aloof. God is engaged in waiting for us to step forward. For Heschel, waiting is never one-sided. It's mutual. It's relational. It's charged with possibility. Think of it this way. Every mitzvah that we do, every prayer that we utter, every act of kindness that we extend is not only our duty and response to God, but it's God's waiting being fulfilled by us. And Heschel insists that this waiting is mysterious. Why? Because we don't always know what it is that we're waiting for. Sometimes our longing has no name. It feels like an ache or an emptiness that we cannot quite articulate. We say we're waiting for love or for meaning or for peace. But the truth is that what we wait for often exceeds words that we can give it. For Heschel, mysterious waiting is the foundation stone of our relationship with God and search for holiness. But not all waiting is holy. There is a waiting of hope, and there's a waiting of loneliness. Waiting with God can deepen faith. Waiting alone can deepen despair. One kind of waiting opens possibility, and the other closes us off in pain. That is why our tradition urges us not to leave one another waiting. Sacred waiting is meant to be shared, not suffered. Yet in today's day and age, too many of us know what it feels like to wait painfully, to walk into a place and wonder, will anyone notice me? Will anyone invite me in? Some of us have sat in back rows waiting for someone to reach out. Some of us have stood alone at kiddush lunch, hoping that someone might make room at their table. That is why you see the posters around our room on this Rosh Hashanah. Under the direction of our inclusion committee, this year we're launching the Nobody Sits Alone initiative. A commitment that in this sacred community, no one should wait to feel seen. No one should wait to feel welcomed or to know that they belong. And this is an idea that is being integrated already into every department and every aspect of our community this coming year. And you can help too. If you see someone new or that you don't know, greet them. If you see someone sitting alone, invite them. Bring them in. Today, we stop waiting for the perfect moment to become a community of kindness. Now, at the acknowledged risk of not being able to get all of you back to hear the end of my sermon, I'm going to ask you to look around and in a moment, introduce yourself to someone you don't know. Find out how long they've been part of this community. If you see someone sitting by themselves, invite them to join you. Let's come together as a community and start this new year off right. Please. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Shh. Ladies and gentlemen. That's a good start. A little bit later, you can do that when we have challah and grape juice. Shh. There is a little bit left of the sermon, I promise. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Earlier this year, I was feeling nostalgic, and I rewatched the original Karate Kid from 1984. In it, Mr. Miyagi, the wise sensei, teaches, when walking down the road, walk on the right side, safe. Walk on the left side, safe. Walk down the middle, sooner or later, you get squished. When waiting leads to indecision, it can become dangerous quickly. In our initial story, Daniel's orchard was not lost because he chose left or right. It was because, like Jonah, he refused to choose at all. But then we read Rambam, one of our great rabbis, and he complicates things. He says, Derech ha'emtza'it, the balanced middle way, is wisdom itself. Avoid extremes. Stay off the right or the left side and walk in the middle. So how do we reconcile these two great scholars, Mr. Miyagi and Rambam? The difference lies in intentionality. There is a middle of fear and indecision, waiting forever, letting orchards rot. But there is also a middle of discernment, that golden mean that allows us to live like Esther, with both patience and urgency, savlanut and zrizut in harmony. The Talmud teaches, one who grabs too much grabs nothing. One who grabs little holds it. Balance is not paralysis. It is knowing when to wait and when to act, when to prepare and when to leap. And that is the demand of Rosh Hashanah. To know what this year requires and then to act. Today is not a holiday of endless waiting. It is the birthday of the world. The day when God leans close and whispers, "Nu? What are you waiting for? To say I forgive you? I love you? I'm sorry? To make the call? To take the trip? To begin?" Orchards do not bear fruit forever. Life does not wait forever. The shofar pierces the air. Enough waiting, it says. The book of life lies open, and God says, your story is still being written. Pick up the pen. So let me ask you, from the depths of this holy day, what are you waiting for? What orchard have you left untended? What dream have you left sitting on the shelf? What life have you been waiting to begin? This year, may we have the courage not to wait any longer. May we run to kindness like Abraham, overcome hesitation like Moses, avoid being like Jonah, turning our back on what must be done, and measure, prepare, and act like Esther. And when God looks at us, may God not have to ask, what are you waiting for? May God look at us and say, you were ready, you were brave, you chose life. Shana Tova.